Survey log, personal addendum. Edrin Moss, GS7, Orel 4, day 19. I am recording this because Mission Control will want an explanation, and I am not certain I can give one in the debrief, without sounding like a man who cracked alone on a dead world. So I am putting it down now, while my hands are steadier than they have any right to be, and while the light from the Ardenvane is still doing what it is doing to the plain behind me. I will start at the morning. Day 19 began the same as days 12 through 18. Alkali flat, 2 moons low on the horizon, the sky the color of old pewter. Orel 4 has no living atmosphere to speak of. What it has is a pressurized whisper, barely enough to register on a standard gauge, and a temperature that sits 4 degrees above what would make my suit redundant. The geological survey contract called for 40 days, solo, mapping subsurface mineral strata in the Veth's Plain Basin. I had mapped 26 of the assigned 41 sectors. I was ahead of schedule. I was, by any fair measure, doing fine. The Ardenvane was Sector 27. Every survey team that had come to Orel 4 before mine had logged the Ardenvane under the same notation: surface inert. 3 automated probes, 2 manned survey pairs, and 1 academic expedition had approached it, circled it, scanned it, photographed it at every wavelength the equipment could manage, and filed the same report. It was a structure. It was very old. It did nothing. The academic team estimated construction at 11,000 years prior, give or take 400, based on isotopic decay in the carved stone. They named the builders the predecessor culture of Orel 4. They noted the carvings were not in any known language. They noted the gate-like aperture in the center had no visible seam, hinge, or mechanism. They packed up and went home, and the Ardenvane went back to doing what it had done for 11 millennia. Nothing. I had read those reports. I had looked at the photographs. I had filed the Ardenvane under waypoint notation the same as any other mapped structure. A thing to pass on the way to the subsurface readings behind it. I had my core drill. I had my scanner. I had my log recorder, which is this. I was a geological surveyor on a 40-day solo contract on a world that had been dead for 11,000 years. And I had no reason on any map or in any file to expect the morning I was about to have. I reached the Ardenvane at 0840 local, which is to say when the primary sun clears the eastern ridge, and the flat gets enough ambient light to work without headlamps. The structure is larger than the photographs suggested. That is the first thing I logged, before anything else happened. Photographs flattened scale. Standing before it, with my helmet at roughly the height of the 3rd carved column from the base, I understood that the academic team had been looking at a monument the size of a government building. The carvings ran floor to crown, ground level to 40 meters above me, in columns so fine and dense that from 20 meters back they looked like surface texture rather than language. I ran my standard approach scan. The gate registered as solid stone throughout. No internal cavities, no power sources, no thermal differential, nothing the probe teams had not already logged. Surface inert. I noted the notation confirmed, and moved to plant my first depth marker 3 meters to the left of the base. My breath fogged the faceplate. I noted that because I noted everything. The temperature inside the suit was set to nominal, and I should not have been able to see my own breath. I checked the suit's internal gauge. Nominal. I checked it again. Still nominal. The fog cleared in 2 seconds, and I filed it as a condensation artifact and reached for the depth marker. The first glyph lit. I know what I saw. I have played the helmet recorder back 4 times since returning to the HAB unit, and the footage confirms what I wrote in the log in the moment. A single carved glyph, 2nd column from the left, approximately 2 meters above ground level, filled with a pale amber light from the inside out. Not a reflection from the primary sun. The sun was behind me and to the east, and the glyph was on the shadowed face of the stone. Not phosphorescence. The previous survey teams had ruled that out with spectral analysis. The light came from inside the stone. It lasted approximately 4 seconds. Then it went dark. I stood without moving, for what the recorder confirms was 31 seconds. Then I said, out loud, to no one, "That's new." I logged it. I logged the time, the duration, the column and approximate row position of the glyph, the ambient conditions, the suit readings. I am a geological surveyor. I log. Then I took 2 steps closer to the base of the Ardenvane and crouched down to look at the glyph more carefully, because I am also a practical man, and because in my experience, the best way to understand what a thing is doing is to look at it from closer range. The moment I moved, 3 more glyphs lit. Same pale amber. Different positions, 1 near the base, 2 near the crown. They stayed lit. They did not pulse or flicker. They simply were lit, where a moment before they had not been. I stood back up. 8 more glyphs lit. I took a step to the right, and the cluster of active glyphs shifted. Not all of them, but the ones near the base tracked me. Not the way a motion sensor tracks movement, the way a face turns to follow someone it recognizes in a crowd. I stopped moving and said, again to no one, "All right." My suit recorder logged the time as 0847, 7 minutes after approach. 11,000 years of surface inert, and 7 minutes. I keyed mission control. The relay delay to the nearest relay station is 48 minutes each way, which made real-time conversation impossible, but the mission protocol for anomalous contact required an immediate burst log regardless. I transmitted my helmet footage, my scanner readings, and a voice note stating that the Ardenvane appeared to be responding to proximity, specifically to my proximity, given that the probes had logged nothing. Then I stood there, in front of a monument that had been dead for 11,000 years, and waited to see what it would do next. What it did was light every glyph in the left center column. All of them, from the ground to 40 meters above my head, one after another, in a sequence that took about 9 seconds, bottom to top. The amber was brighter now, bright enough to cast a faint shadow of me onto the alkali flat behind me. And the sound, I had not expected sound. There was no atmosphere to carry it, strictly speaking, but the suit's external pickups registered a vibration transmitted through the ground itself. A low, sustained tone, felt more in the chest than heard. Old stone, speaking in the only register available to it on a world without air. I did not step back. I want to note that, for the record, because Mission Control's response, when it came, 96 minutes later, included an instruction to maintain safe distance from the structure. I want it noted that I had not stepped back. I had not retreated. I had stood where I was on Veth's plain and watched an 11,000-year-old monument do the only thing it had apparently been waiting to do, and I had not moved. Because it occurred to me, standing there, that the Ardenvane was not alarming me. Whatever was happening, whatever recognition or response or ancient mechanism had finally been triggered by a geological surveyor from Earth, planting a depth marker at its base on a routine 40-day survey contract, it did not feel like a threat. It felt like the end of a very long wait. By 0931, every glyph on the face of the Ardenvane was lit. The gate aperture, the one the academic team had described as showing no visible seam, hinge, or mechanism, began to open at 0934. I know what I mean when I say that. I mean a seam appeared where there had been no seam, running the full vertical height of the aperture, and the 2 halves of what had been seamless stone drew back from each other in a motion that was neither fast nor slow but deliberate, the way a door opens when someone on the other side has decided to open it. The stone surface did not crack or crumble. It had been cut, 11,000 years ago, to a tolerance that allowed it to move, and it moved now, as cleanly as it had presumably been designed to move, on whatever mechanism was housed in the 3 meters of solid stone the scanner had called surface inert. The light from inside was pale and white, and came from everywhere at once. Not blinding, the kind of light that a room has when every surface in it is evenly lit, and there are no shadows. I walked forward. I have asked myself since then whether I should have. Whether a rational man on a solo survey contract, with a 48-minute relay delay to the nearest human contact, on a dead world at the edge of a surveyed zone, should walk through an aperture in a monument he does not understand, when that monument opens for him after 11,000 years of refusing everyone else. My answer is that I did not experience it as a decision. I experienced it as a completion. The Ardenvane had opened. The only question that seemed relevant was what was inside. What was inside was a chamber the size of a large room, with walls of the same carved stone and a ceiling that caught the ambient light and distributed it. In the center of the chamber was a plinth of darker stone, uncarved, and on the plinth was nothing, an absence. a prepared surface for a thing that was not there, or a thing that had been removed, or a thing that had never been physical to begin with. And then the Ardenvane spoke. I want to be precise about this. There was no voice in any conventional sense. The suit's external pickup recorded a vibration in the stone that the onboard translation processor could not classify. What I experienced was closer to understanding than hearing, as though the meaning arrived before any mechanism to deliver it did, as though the chamber had been designed not to carry sound, but to carry intent. What arrived was this: last keeper of the burning name. Not a question, not a greeting in any conventional sense, a statement of recognition, specific, weighted, ancient, the kind of words that do not introduce themselves as significant because they have been waiting long enough that significance no longer needs announcing. I stood in the center of the chamber for a period of time I cannot fully account for. The recorder says 11 minutes. It felt like considerably less. I was trying to understand what it meant to be named, to be recognized, by a thing older than any human civilization, as carrying something I had not known I carried, as being the keeper of something I could not have described to you, named by a word in a language no human scholar had been able to read. The burning name, whatever that is, whatever it was in the understanding that arrived in my chest in that pale-lit chamber, it is mine, has apparently always been mine, was, 11,000 years ago, encoded into the expectation of this place by people who built monuments that lasted longer than the civilization that raised them, and sealed this gate with the patience to wait for whatever thread of inheritance or bloodline or acoustic genetic resonance. The survey team's bioacoustic specialists are going to have an interesting few months with my medical file, would eventually walk back to this plane and say, without knowing it was a password, nothing more dramatic than, all right. I came out of the chamber at approximately 10:20. The gate closed behind me as cleanly as it had opened. The glyphs went dark, column by column, from the crown to the base, over about 9 seconds, until the face of the Ardenvane was stone again. By the time Mission Control's abort instruction arrived, the monument had been sealed for 41 minutes. I did not log a surface inert. I logged what I saw, and what I heard, and what the chamber contained, and what was said to me by a structure built 11,000 years before any human being set foot on a world beyond our own sun. The report is extensive. The bioacoustic specialists are going to want the helmet recorder's raw pickup data, and I have preserved it. The translation processor's classification failure is logged and time-stamped. I have nothing to offer Mission Control in the way of explanation beyond the record. What I can offer is this. I am a geological surveyor. I have spent 22 years mapping the subsurface composition of dead worlds at the edge of human survey ranges. I am not a linguist, not a xenoarchaeologist, not a specialist in predecessor civilizations, not a man anyone would have selected for a moment of cosmic consequence. I came to Orel 4 to map mineral strata in the Veth's Plain Basin. I was ahead of schedule. I was, by any fair measure, doing fine. Whatever the Ardenvane was waiting for, it was not a specialist. It was not an expedition, or a probe, or a team with the right credentials. It had been waiting for me, or for the thing I carry that I didn't know I was carrying, which amounts to the same thing. 11,000 years is a long time to hold a door closed. It opened in 9 seconds. I have 48 survey days remaining on this contract. I will complete them. Sector 28 is a subsurface mineral zone, approximately 6 kilometers northeast of the Ardenvane, and the core drill is charged and ready. But I find, writing this, that I am not the same man who set his depth marker down at Euro 840 and noted that the temperature at the faceplate seemed off. I don't have language for what is different. The Ardenvane gave me a name for it, and the name is 11,000 years old and burns in a language I cannot speak and did not know I held. That will have to be enough. End of personal log addendum, day 19, 11:47 local. Edrin Moss, GS7, last keeper of the burning name.